what initially hit me was the coverage of the sport. The initial thought was, how different is this sport going to be covered? Because even though we all would joke about how the SEC and ESPN are in bed together, and those attachments are obvious, ESPN has always had game rights to every conference. And so this is going to be the first time that ESPN, ABC has not had coverage, meaning game rights, to all the conferences. So now this is the next step in the mammoth mega war between the SEC and the Big Ten, Fox and ESPN, even further separating themselves. And now, even though ESPN would be siding toward the SEC and would have the full run of the schedule, except for what CBS had at 3:30 through its various networks and the SEC network, you're now looking at the complete separation. ABC and ESPN were showing very prominent Big Ten games up until next season now, and now there's a complete detachment. What is that coverage from ESPN going to look like? How much journalistic integrity is going to be there versus serving its own needs?
I think that's a very big question. And I do expect them to also sign deals with the Big 12 and the Pac-12. So they will have other conferences to talk about. But when we all look at this and expect them to just be giant shills, I think they also are aware of that and will have to try to not necessarily be that. So I'm interested to see how they manage that, because you look at GameDay and they're not good at impartiality for a lot of what they do. And I'll talk, and Desmond Howard being a Michigan shill, a Big Ten guy, where you already know what he's going to say before he says it. And so I think there's I would wonder, is there really much journalistic integrity with GameDay as an entity anymore?
I mean, as a former TV producer, obviously you have to protect your lead in. So if your lead in is SEC, it's not a matter of integrity or anything at that point. It's a matter of finance. You protect your lead in, you protect your properties. You're a rights holder. There's a reason why when I've covered the Major League Baseball All-Star game, that there are certain people that work for the network that's carrying it have special passes that are rights holder passes. I mean, so, I think that it's going to be a situation when you have college football final and things like that, that maybe the Big Ten game of the day, if it is a true national game, may sneak into the A block, and that the rest of the Big Ten may be in the D block. Maybe, and Mark will appreciate this as in terms of television terms, top VO. You're not going to even do an on-cam lead-in. You're just going to roll right into it and get it over with at that point. And it's part of the equation. It's part of the equation that you're going to be losing potentially some of that there. But the thing is that we all work for websites that cover single teams. There's so much stuff. There's so much information out there that if you're looking for things short of highlights, because of just the way that highlights are kept captive by television deals, but if you're looking for the information, you're going to be able to go out there and find it. And your hardcore people are going to have no problem doing that. I think it's going to be the casual fan that may suffer the most. And, I think suffer is probably a little too dramatic of a term, but I think they're going to be the ones that are going to have, the biggest learning curve in trying to figure out what the new landscape looks like without having the mouse house really pumping up the Big Ten.
And that was always almost a daily fire drill at ESPN that I thought was taking for granted the average viewer and their learning curve in regards to, we're going to market protect this and swing this game over to ESPN2, and then we're going to do this and throw it on ESPN News, and we'll push tip back for this, and be like, do we really expect that people are up on our strategies for throwing games all over the place at a moment's notice? I don't think so. So yeah. All right. The whole coverage aspect, to both Tony's point and Kevin's point, I have no way to track this, but it just had a feel that College Game Day was certainly siding with the games on the network for a long time. And I do think, to Tony's point, that there was a lot of criticism out there. And so they tried to break that trend to a certain extent and would just go for the game of the week, even though it was on a rival network. But now there was at least the incentive of, we cover that conference. We will have future games from these teams now, except for the big non-conference games that are going to, of course, swap networks and overlap. Then you've got this complete detachment between ESPN/ABC and the Big Ten.
I think it'll be interesting when in 2024 or whenever USC and UCLA finally join, or there's this, the biggest game of the week is obviously in the Big Ten, and there are no other great games. Where is game day going? Louisville versus Clemson.
I was going to say, I mean, yeah, why are you going to travel to a Big Ten venue to pimp a game that's not on your air?
But I mean, they've done that. They've done that with CBS games, but they also were contracted with that network or with that conference. Like, so they have gone to games that weren't on their air. Now, will they go to a game of a conference that is no longer on their air?
There's a difference of a game that's not on your air versus a conference that's not on your air.
Yep.
And then that's going to be the thing, because then it just becomes a big commercial to flip the channel and go elsewhere. And I mean, and again, you could kind of say the same thing about a game that's not on your air, but there's no reason for them to try, and we're partners with the Big Ten. We're going to try and build this up together. And while we don't have Ohio State, Penn State, we have Michigan State, Wisconsin, or whatever, and we'll all benefit at the end. It's like, I was reading something. I think it was a piece I read in Awful Announcing this morning by Ben Koo about how when like Fox and CBS will have playoff games in the NFL, and it's a lot easier to be able to promote something there because you all have a piece of the pie in terms of the NFL or whatever. But this isn't a case of where everybody's going to have a piece of the pie in terms of the NC2A, because that's not where it's at. It's on the conference level largely. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of game day at Big Ten games moving forward once we get to this new situation, because it just doesn't make any sense.
I think they're going to have a real problem with basketball. One, because of the inventory. ESPN ate up a lot of that, even though their number of games and quality of games had kind of gone downhill in recent years in basketball. I don't know what cable outlets you're going to use. Are you going to use CBS Sports Network for that? Are you going to use more Fox Sports 1? They're really invested with the Big East for basketball. I mean, every Big East game is on Fox Sports 1. I wonder about Fox Sports 2. Does it take on some of this inventory in lieu? I mean, the next step after Fox Sports 2, if you don't get involved with CBS Sports Network or USA Network, is putting it over on Fox Sports 2, which I don't have my numbers, but let's say ESPN's in 90 million homes and Fox Sports 1's in like 80 million homes. Fox Sports 2 is only in like 40 million homes, something like that. So that's really, it's just kind of sitting there languishing. They have nothing on that channel really, other than poker and bowling and whatever, really the fourth tier stuff goes on that channel. Does that become an option even for Big Ten football, you wonder? So I don't know. Just curious how it's all going to shake out and how they're going to accommodate everything. And are they just going to say, "Oh, I'll put it on Big Ten Network and stream it," and just hands up in the air and say, "That's it. Don't worry about it."
You say that let's just say hypothetically FS2 has 40 million. That's still about 35 more million than Pac-12 Network ever had. So we'll kind of go from there. But yeah, and I know that this is kind of a football centric show, but the basketball thing is something that just comes to mind hugely. And Tony just jumped in our chat and said 57 million for FS2 and as of 2018. One thing that they're going to have to do is get the satellite and cable companies to move it back into where the rest of the sports channels are, because I only know DirecTV, and the ESPNs and the FS1s are in the 210s and 220s, and I think FS2 is something like 620. I think something around.
Good luck finding it. Yeah.
It's kind of like during March Madness, and everybody's like, it's time of the year to ask where True TV is. Nobody knows where True TV is.
You have to look up the number and tell the people at the bar. Yes, it's on the channel. It's called True TV. What? True. True TV. Well, it's like I'll go to a bar here in Columbus and I'll say the Reds. Baseball, the Reds, 661. What channel's on? Bally Sport. Bally, what is that? Bally Sports, Ohio, 661. You have DirecTV? Oh, yeah, we get DirecTV, but I don't think we get that. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You're in Columbus. You get it. Yeah.
They probably still know them by the red stockings. That's probably
Yeah.
the issue there.